all that stuff, we need to raise $5,000 more dollars.
Wow, how are we going to do that?
Well, I'm gonna let the grown-ups say that part.
Okay. Oh, hi, Sarah.
Hi, Senya.
Hey, Barth and Iris, so good to see you again. And welcome, young people and the grown folks you brought with you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Senya Haynes. I am a children's book author. I am an actress, and I'm also a youth development practitioner for several years now. My role here with At the Garden is both behind and in front of the camera. So I have been a writer's consultant, and I also have the distinguished pleasure of playing Tree Senya. So very excited about that. It'll be the first time I'm wearing bark. So we are here to listen to and learn from award-winning author Sharon Wyeth. But first, let's learn more from Sarah about why we're here. Sarah?
Thank you, Senya. So if anybody doesn't know me, my name is Sarah Faulkner. I have been a Chicago public school teacher for the past 16 years, and I have been a filmmaker and writer for the past 3 years. I have the pleasure of being the executive producer for At the Garden and also the director and one of the very talented writers involved with the show. So I'm really happy to be here because At the Garden is basically a children's television concept that we want to film. So we're indie filmmakers and we want to get a very excellent version of this show in a nutshell so that we can show people what we're capable of. And At the Garden basically has three main concepts. One of them is promoting literacy, and that is so important today now more than ever. And we also believe in literature that is representational of youth of all colors. That is very important to us and why we asked Sharon Wyeth to be with us today. So not only literacy, but also social emotional learning. And let me tell you, right now, our kids need this now more than ever because they are everything that is happening in the world and in current events. As an adult, I look at, I watch, I'm confused, and behind us are the children that are watching too. And since school has been a mix of remote and hybrid and all these things, educators don't really have a great opportunity to sit and help kids understand it and also help them understand social emotional learning that should be happening in classrooms right now, and yet we're remote. So At the Garden, promoting literacy, social emotional learning, and also sustainability because we are at a garden and that lends itself to all different types of learning that can happen. And we all live on this earth together. So that's really, really important. I want to take a second to thank all of the people that so far have been promoting this. We are on GoFundMe, and this has been a $25, $50, $100, $50, $25 thing. This is kind of our culminating event here today with Sharon Wyeth, but we are so grateful for anyone that has supported our endeavors, and we are going to shoot this. This concept is going to be shot at the end of March. We are super excited and very thankful for anyone that can help us a little more today or share our concept before our campaign ends tomorrow at midnight. So before I go any further, I just want to take a minute to look back at our first concept video, which just a note, we shot this at a community garden. And so in the beginning, we really didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that Chicago Public Schools was going to go hybrid. And so, or at least remote starting in September. And so we wanted to create something that could supplement remote learning. And so we basically came up with a concept for a TV show with a curriculum. So with the help of the very talented writers and actors from Oddbox Theater, we did this early concept video, which is great, but we have to take it to the next level. And that's why we're here to raise money today. But let me stop talking and let's watch that early concept video that we shot at the Corner Farm in Logan Square, Chicago.
Good morning, friends. I'm so excited to see you on this sunerific day. My name is Miss Sivan, and I'm going to be your garden teacher. I'd like to introduce you to some of my friends.
Hey there, my name is Benji, and I'm with the band. We're gonna sing a song for you. You can sing along if you want to.
Iris, do you want to go on a field trip?
Walking down the street in my neighborhood, the sun is shining and life is good. That's beautiful.
Well, everybody, it's time to say goodbye for today.
Goodbye from the garden crew. Goodbye to all of you. Our time is over, but we'll still be friends. Come back to the garden, we'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Come back see you next time. Stay safe.
So basically, it's from community garden to soundstage. And I just want to tell you that as a filmmaker, as an indie filmmaker, I pretty much do my short films with no budget. I basically get people excited about what I'm doing, and then I pay them with food. So it's pretty crazy for me to be even trying to reach this goal of 15,000. But I just want to take a second to let you know what that's for. So the reason why we're asking that much is because that 15,000 is going to cover a soundstage rental. It's going to cover the equipment rental. We have to have production insurance. We need to be COVID compliant. So we have to have a COVID compliance team. We also are incorporating some technology to bring this feel of a Chicago neighborhood garden to the backdrop. We have a set design team, and that's what I'm doing later today. I'm visiting the space to help make the trees, which our beautiful Senya will be tree Senya in our show. So she has a tree fitting tomorrow. So all those things, and the fact that we want to feed people while they're on set. You can't work 12-hour days without eating, so that's our responsibility. And also we're giving a little stipend. And when I say little, I mean really it's out of respect that we are trying to give our actors, puppeteers, and crew a small token of their time and energy that they've given to this project. So that is why we're asking for such a big amount. And honestly, we are 2/3 of the way there. So we are going to shoot this no matter what. But that is where this money is going. And on that note, enough about ATG. Let's talk about why we're really here. We are here because of Sharon Wyeth. And Sharon Wyeth is an award-winning author of this book right here. This is called Something Beautiful. And I can't tell you how much this book means to me as an educator. So I told you I've been teaching for 16 years in Chicago public schools, low-income schools, and this book is so impactful for the children that I read it to because they see themselves. And there's not many books that are brave enough to really show what growing up in an urban environment looks like. And this book does. And it not only shows it, but it also highlights the beauty in community and in neighborhoods. And at the end of it, this little girl is inspired and empowered. And what I have witnessed is when I read this to students, whether it's my little ones, my pre-K, kindergarten, first graders, or those older theater students that are in middle school, the impact, the empowerment that they feel is palatable. I was actually, I read this book the other day to two of my preschool students that are in person, and we were taking a walk around the school after lunch, and one of my students pointed to some broken glass on the sidewalk, and he's like, "Miss Faulkner, fallen stars." And I was like, wow, That's a line directly from Sharon's book. That connection that kids feel with this little girl, and the fact that they can see characters that look like themselves, like their mom and their aunt, that is so powerful. And because of that, and because we need more books that can be mirrors for children, that can reflect their worlds with positivity, is so important. And that's one of the big reasons that I feel that At the Garden needs to promote literacy and highlight this. So I am super excited to fangirl a little bit over Sharon Dennis Wyeth. And when I emailed her thinking, no way is this author going to reply to me. And she did. She was warm. She met with me. We talked. She is letting us use 2 pages from this book for our shoot that we're doing at the end of the month. And not only that, I reached out to her again and I said, Sharon, would you like to do this event with us? And she said yes. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sarah. I think you so beautifully conveyed how a book really can change your life. Thank you so much for that. And with that,
Mm.
let's welcome our special guest and author, Sharon Dennis Wyeth.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. And especially, I don't know, with this very exciting new concept at the garden. And I spoke with Sarah about her work. I'm a former actress too, just like Senya is a working actress, but I started out in the theater also. But I've been writing children's books for quite a long time. And I know Senya's work as a children's book author, admire it greatly. So we're all kind of in good company here with one another.
Thank you.
Did you have something else you wanted to say, Sarah, before I started? Or
Uh,
Well, I want
it's
to
fine.
actually let the audience know a little bit about you, Sharon, if that's okay.
okay, great, terrific.
Awesome. Okay. So, for you guys out there in viewerland, let me tell you a little bit about Sharon Dennis Wyeth. She is, as she said, a writer slash educator, born and raised in Washington, D.C. She's the author of numerous award winning books, and she's been writing for children and young adults since 1989. Something Beautiful is a Children's Book Council notable book in the field of social studies and a Parents Magazine Best Book of the Year. Ms. Wyeth has visited numerous schools throughout the United States, motivating students to become avid readers and fearless writers. Her themes include, but are not limited to, literacy, racial harmony, identity, poverty, and resilience. Ms. Wyeth's books are written to be discussed in classrooms, book groups, and within the family. We are so honored to have Ms. Wyeth here with us today to read and discuss her very popular book, Something Beautiful, which turns 23 this year. So, without further ado, you guys out there in viewerland, kiddies and adults alike, I want you to sit back and get cozy for a live read aloud of Something Beautiful by Sharon Dennis Wyeth.
Yes. And before we get started, I want to tell everyone out there this is actually the copy of my book from my classroom. So I have had this book for 16 years, and you can tell that it is well read and well loved. Just look at the binding. So it just felt perfect to have this book here for this event. And I'm going to be doing this remote teacher style. I've gotten pretty good. Thanks, COVID. So I will be actually giving you the experience by holding up the book like I do for my students that are still learning remote. So Sharon, whenever you are ready.
Okay. Something Beautiful by Sharon Dennis Wyeth. That's me. I've already been introduced. Illustrated by Chris K. Soonpeat. Chris Soonpeat is a marvelous painter, and at this point, the world knows him because he's illustrated a number of award-winning books, including Something Beautiful. Uh, there's a picture of him actually in one of the illustrations. He painted himself into the book. So when I get there, I'll show it to you. I'll point it out to you. When I look through my window, I see a brick wall. There's trash in the courtyard. and a broken bottle that looks like fallen stars. There's writing in the halls of my building. On the front door, someone wrote the word die. Where I walk, I pass a lady whose home is a big cardboard carton. She sleeps on the sidewalk, wrapped in plastic. I run past a dark alley where mommy told me I must never stop. Behind a fence, there's a garden without any flowers. Mommy said that everyone should have something beautiful in their life. Where is my something beautiful? The teacher taught me the word in school. I wrote it in my book. Beautiful. Beautiful. I think it means something that when you have it, your heart is happy. I go to Miss Delphine's diner. Hi there, sugar pie, says Miss Delphine. What are you up to? I'm looking for a something beautiful, I tell her. Sit down for a minute, she says, as she goes to the grill. She puts on fish. The fish sizzles. Miss Delphine makes it into a sandwich. There's nothing more beautiful tasting than my fried fish sandwiches, she tells me. My teeth sink in. Mmm, this is good. When I go back outside, I see some of my friends. Do you have something beautiful? I ask them. I have my jump rope, says Sybil. I have my beads, says Rebecca. Check out my new shoes, says Jamal. My fruit store is one beautiful store, says Mr. Lee. You do have nice apples, I say. Thank you, says Mr. Lee. Take one. And I told you I would let you know when the painting of Chris K. Soonpete, the illustrator, appears, and the man that's holding the basket of apples looks just like Chris K. Soonpete. He put himself in the book. So whenever I'm reading it, I feel like he's right here with me. Watch my moves, says Mark, playing ball in the playground. Hear my sounds, says Georgina, dancing on the sidewalk. This is one of my favorite illustrations. When I visited many schools, and sometimes kids will ask, oh, did you dance on the sidewalk? And actually, I did. My friends and I used to, after school, we had little radios. It was in the old days. And we had radios that we carried around, and we turned on music and we would dance on the corner after school. We'll go to the next page. Touch this smooth stone, says old Mr. Sims, sitting on his front steps. All these years, I have carried it in my pocket. Through the big window in the laundrette, I see Aunt Carolyn holding baby Carl. And where are you off to, little miss? She asks me. I'm looking for something beautiful, I say. She hands me Carl and folds up the clothes. I tickle Carl and he giggles. He makes me giggle too. My baby's laugh is something beautiful, says Aunt Carolyn. I go back home and sit down on my stoop. I look at the trash in my courtyard. I see the word die on my door. I go upstairs and get a broom and a sponge and some water. I pick up the trash. I sweep up the glass. I scrub the door very hard. When dye disappears, I feel powerful. Someday I'll plant flowers in my courtyard. I'll invite all my friends to see. I will give a real home and a real bed to the lady who sleeps in a cardboard curtain. She will sing and I will hear her song. Mommy comes home from work. She gives me a great big hug. Do you have something beautiful? I ask her. Of course, she says. I have you. You know, this final illustration with the child and the book and her mom reminds me of my own mother, who was very loving. And she gave me a little present when I was about 7 years old. And I called it my something beautiful. Here it is. I still have it. And in fact, there is a picture of it in the very back of the book. It's not part of the story. It's an author's note explaining that one day I was looking outside my window and I saw some trash in the alley outside. And I really did. I had learned how to spell the word beautiful several years before in kindergarten. And I said, can I have something beautiful, please, to put on my windowsill so I don't have to look at the trash in the alley? And she gave me this. And you may think it's not much of a gift for a child, but I really cherished it and I still have it. And I call it my something beautiful. It was the inspiration for the book. No longer occurs in the text, but the message is there. So that's it, that story.
That was beautiful.
Hey, Barth,
Yeah?
what's your something beautiful?
I think Harold's it is my something beautiful.
Ooh!
What about you, Iris?
I have lots of something beautifuls. Oh, I love Miss Mallory's ripe strawberries from the garden, and the music that Benji plays on his guitar. And I love Miss Yvonne's teaching, and I get to learn new things. And I love when Jax does the brain breaks, and I get to move my body.
Okay, you have a lot of something beautifuls.
You know what would really be beautiful?
What?
Is if we reached our goal. Then we could share our something beautifuls with the world.
Yeah, okay. Our goal is to raise $5,000. That means that if 50 people donated $100 each,
Yeah.
we would reach our goal.
But Barth, what if 100 people were here? How much would we need to raise then?
Then everybody would have to donate $50.
Wow! So the more people that donate, the faster we can reach our goal.
Exactly. But anything that people give is good for us. Yeah, anything, even $5.
Well, even $5 help us get closer to our goal.
Yeah.
Oh, it's time for the Q&A.
Oh boy, I think Miss Yvonne said we could each ask one question. I already know mine.
Oh, well, I can't wait to meet Miss Rife. Maybe I'll grow up to be a writer and write beautiful books, just like her.
Wow.
Wow.
All right. While we give those puppets some think time, let's move into the Q&A portion of our event. So Sarah, why don't you start, and then I'll read some questions from the chat, which I think I already seen ones come in. So go ahead, out there in viewerland, young people, grown folks that came with them, please type your questions in the chat. We want to know what you're thinking. What would you like to know? And then I will read them out to Sharon in a little bit, okay?
Thank you,
Sarah?
Senya. Yes, so as a good teacher, I do have my questions written down for you, Sharon. So I will begin with this. I read on your website that you said, when I was a child, reading saved my life. As an adult, I've found my way writing childhood. So how did reading save your life?
Well, I mean, I really do think that's not an exaggeration. I went to a number of elementary schools, about 8 different elementary schools, or 8 different transfers before I ever went to junior high. And every time I went, I was tested for my reading. Well, fortunately, I had a public library card that my mother got for me when I was about, well, actually, I think I could get it at 5, but she took me there long before that. So my parents taught me how to read when I was about 3 or 4. I know by 4 I could read little chapter books and so on. And as soon as I was able, when I was old enough, I went to the library by myself and read whatever I wanted to read. So I felt very confident in that area and empowered, and I had some fabulous teachers. Otherwise, I really would have just perished because I was always the new kid, and I don't know what would have happened. I certainly wouldn't have been a writer. There's no way. Reading is what for me was extremely empowering, and it also provided real privacy. Sometimes when you live in an urban environment or in a home where lots of things are going on, sometimes you don't really understand what they are, and you don't have your own room, which I didn't. You know, I had a room with 3 brothers, or I slept with my mother on some other occasions. You can have that book that you love and open it up and enter a world that really has a different kind of space for you. So reading, I think, has saved a lot of people's lives.
I absolutely agree. And I know in my experience as an educator that there are kids that move around a lot. And unfortunately, many of them that come in and spend some time at our school before they go somewhere else don't come in with that tool of being able to read. I think that it sounds like you came from a situation where reading was valued at an early age. And, you know, I think it's also important that sometimes it's not that parents don't value reading, but they don't necessarily know how to enrich their child's lives with it and how to do it right. And so I think that's another reason why it's so important that this show promotes literacy and also like more opportunities to hear books. So I'm very glad that you had that in your back pocket for all the schools that you
Yeah.
went to. Yeah. Um, so looking at your extensive roster of children's books, why do you feel that representational literature is important, if not critical, for youth?
Well, reading is, we were going back to reading. It really is it's a complex
Mhm.
process.
Yeah.
You know, we're learning patterns and words.
Hmm.
We learn the meanings of the words. We have the sounds in the words. But if there's no identification with what's going on in the book, if you feel completely cut off, it's really a very dry exercise and it doesn't stick.
Yeah. Hmm.
Not only that, it sends messages. When I was growing up, because of my age, there were there were literally no books around for me that had children of color in them. I am African American, and I was very aware of that. Even though I enjoyed reading so much, I was aware of it. It's very off-putting and can be hurtful when a child reads something in a book that actually misrepresents their family life and who they are, their group as well. I remember reading an older book called about the Bobbsey twins, and those were very popular books. And my mother brought me one, and I happened to have the edition that I first read, and later it was changed. But in the very first lines, there was uh, uh, um, a person who worked in the home of the Bobbseys, and that was a white family, and the maid, I guess, was talking to the kids in a dialect that was so strange. And when I read it, I actually felt, I can remember as a child, like someone was hitting me in the middle of the head. It was so confusing, but also I could tell that there was something negative about it. And when I mentioned it to my mother, because I was a very good reader at that point, I said, "What are these words?" And she said, "Well, this author doesn't understand really how Black people might talk. They don't understand." So that's an extreme example, but you can feel very like the book is very flat, and also give you the message that you are excluded, that you're not a part of the in crowd, a part of the crowd that goes places, that accomplishes things. And, you're always somebody who's on the outside looking in. Uh, Today, of course, we have marvelous, marvelous writers. I think we need more and more books that are representational, but there's been an incredible improvement. And I'm really quite proud and feel quite fortunate that for so many years I've been a part of that, creating that literature.
Yeah, I agree. I know that I went to a training a number of years ago that has always stuck with me about giving children opportunities that the books can give you an opportunity for a child to look in the mirror and see themselves, or they can be a window into another world that they can't access. And I think that we're seeing more and more authors that are African American and are writing and are doing illustrations like the ones in your book. But all I can say is more, more, more. We need kids to be able to see themselves and also their environments, which I think that your story did very well. So thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Okay, so our target audience without the garden is children in urban areas that have experiences similar to the young girl in Something Beautiful. What has been your experience with children when you have read this book?
Well, when I was writing the book, well, first of all, it's based on certain things I experienced in my own childhood, and uh, real things that I saw in the neighborhood, but also very positive things. Just the people that I knew in the neighborhood who looked out for me and my brothers and the teachers, the shop owners, the neighbors who sat out on their stoops. Uh, for me, that was the neighborhood. Uh, I have, though, observed as an adult in my work as a family counselor when I first got out of college, very challenging environments in the city where, let's say, for an example, you're in a building, an apartment building, where the landlord has not really provided adequate services. So I had the um, occasion to go into an apartment, let's say, where the ceiling is falling down and no one is there to fix it. Where you look in the basement or the foyer and there's all kinds of rubbish being stored by the landlord. There's a broken window. And the adults who live in these places and rent them uh, really don't have the power. It's not their property
Right.
to fix the ceiling. And when a child is living in that kind of an environment, they see it.
Mhm.
When I first wrote the first draft of the book, or actually I'd gone through about 7 or 8 drafts, frankly. It takes a long time for me to write a picture book. Seems so simple, but I'd finally gotten to this particular draft with very few changes, and I read it at a school, and I actually in the Bronx in New York, and I actually dedicated partially the book to them. I was very nervous because their environment right outside of the school was very, very much like the environment in the book. And for me, it was extremely important not to depict the neighborhood in a way that would cast a kind of aspersions on the people who live there, and also make the people who live there ashamed of where they lived. And it can happen very easily. So I was real afraid of that, and I had tried to be very sensitive to create the reality, but yet to also have the life of the people who live there be very positive and nurturing to the child. So I read it in a classroom where I was a visiting author, and they knew that they were the test readers, and they were going to be honest. They knew me. They knew me because I had been going as a volunteer author. They knew me, and they were very excited that I was reading the book to them for the first time. They were the first ones to hear it in third grade, and I was quite nervous. There was complete silence in the room when I got done, and I thought, oh no, uh, they don't like it or they're shocked. And this boy raised his hand and he said, I'm in that book. And I kid you not, that's what he said, just like that. And they all started saying it. I feel emotional just remembering it now. Uh, and then that was my affirmation. It really was. Now I've gone to other schools with the book where the children are living in environments where they're not faced with all kinds of challenges like the one I described earlier. And they too respond to the book. It's extraordinary. Do their own creative projects that are beautiful, and then community projects. Uh, so they go out into the community and try to, I don't know, plant a garden, for example, or to work in a garden, just like, very
Yeah.
similar to the themes that you're really the very positive themes that you're highlighting in the series, in the pilot. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that answer so much. My first 3 years of teaching, I was in Cabrini Green. And for those of you that know a little bit about Chicago history, Cabrini Green had
Yeah.
quite a reputation. However, the community, the love, and the family that was there was very powerful. And so reading this book to those children, I think they also had that experience of identifying and seeing themselves in that book. And to your other point, I was talking with a friend of mine's daughter, and she's 11 years old, and she doesn't live in she doesn't have this type of urban experience. But for her, when she read it, it also, she does see homeless people and she's like, I want to help. I'm empowered and I want to make a bigger change. And I think that's what I love about your book, which kind of leads into my next question, Sharon. Um, as an educator, turning to this book for the past 16 years, and the fact it's turning 23 years old, which is pretty
Yeah.
amazing in itself.
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah. Lucky.
yeah, I was wondering, as you wrote it, did you have any idea that you would create such a powerful call to action, not only in educators and in children? Uh, and are you surprised by that, that it's so universal, the book?
Well, I feel very happy about it. But
Mhm.
I had, as I said, I did 7 different drafts. I mean, and they were all extremely different. I mean, the little
Oh.
object, the little something beautiful object was the star when I first started writing
Oh,
the
interesting.
book. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't as if I had a plan or a roadmap for it.
Mhm.
It really evolved over time. And and I'm not surprised that people respond to it in a way. I guess because when I was writing it, I was very emotionally attached to it and trying to unearth the message that I some of my childhood in a way. When I first started writing it, it was about the object, as I said, and then this very brilliant editor, I've had a lot of brilliant editors actually, um, said to me, and she was very patient, you know, and she said, finally, I want you to ask yourself who the book is about.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, well, it's about the object, the little bud vase, right? Right? The little
Yeah.
bud vase who goes through almost gets broken and is in a fire and gets lost. And then,
Mhm.
but somehow just the question, I suddenly thought, my God, of course it's about me. I mean, I'm the one
Yeah.
who learned how to, um, but not just about me, but somehow about that universal childhood experience that some children have. The wonder of beauty, the discovery of beauty in everyday things, in very unlavish environments, the wonder of actually learning how to spell a word. That came from my kindergarten teacher. As soon as first day of school, she wrote the word on the board. And I knew my ABCs, and she said, anybody wants to draw a picture of something beautiful can, anyone who wants to write the word. And I wrote the word, and it was so exciting. Somehow attached to some real feeling inside of me. So uh, I'm glad that it's still in print because, a lot of people have responded, and I did work very hard on it, as I do with all my work.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I love how it's grown. Uh, ooh, we can segue back to the garden for a second with that. Ha ha ha. You have been an early supporter of our concept, and I'm just curious about what intrigues or excited you most when I've been talking with you about at the garden.
Well, I think, first of all, you were very direct in your, communication with me and explained who you were and what you were doing, and I think so many artists, uh, creators, educators, do things from the heart, and they are independent producers. They have their projects that they become
Yeah.
attached to. So I can identify with that. One human being to another. So I identified with it. Also, though, the garden, I mean, for me, I had a farm that I went to every summer at my grandparents', and I was very, very attached to, all of the animals, but mainly the flowers and growing things. I have my own garden, and I believe that nature is very healing, and it's a really, community gardens within cities can be extremely valuable locations for kids and adults, places where people can do things together,
Mhm.
where and they also have this opportunity to see things grow and to be surrounded
Yeah.
by nature, to take care of something. Nature is very healing and wonderful, and it connects people. So I love your setting, the location. I also love the puppets. I mean, I adore them. It's very freeing, I think, for actors to be able to somehow express themselves in a much more fluid way
Mhm.
through a puppet, and then the integration of humans and puppets together. I think it's a fabulous medium. So, those were the things that attracted me, but primarily your commitment uh, to the work that you do, and the fact that you are an educator and that you know children, and you're giving something that to somebody else as while you're feeding your own uh, creative self. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank you, Sharon. And for any of you that are interested, this idea actually came out of last summer that I spent at my community garden and doing compost, which was very enjoyable for me, strange but true. And that's how I had the fortune. I was bringing different guests into the garden because people were dropping off their compost wearing masks, but we all felt so socially inhibited. And we were all hungry for that. And so that is when I was bringing in a musician every Wednesday. Some of them were friends, and sometimes I got referrals. And that's where I had the good fortune of meeting Jackie Smook and Sivan Spector, who helped me develop the concept. They also helped at the writers' table. We wrote some episodes together, and they are Oddbox Theater, which brings the puppets to life. So they
that's great.
are wonderful people. So thank you. And now I think I am done with my list. So Senya, what do we have going on over there?
Well, as a matter of fact, it looks like Iris has a question.
Oh,
Iris, yes.
I love to read, but it's hard for me. Was learning to read hard for you?
well, Iris, that's an interesting question. I think that reading was not as hard for me. I learned early, but I think that the fact that I was able to be an independent reader, to read the kinds of things that interested me. For example, I love to cook, and I like baking cookies. So a book for me that I would really love to read, it would be a cookbook, and I would turn to a recipe. And even though it might be hard to master the language or the words, the fact that it's attached to something else that is useful to me makes it worth worth the trouble. It gives me more motivation for reading. Uh, so I would say that don't give up on it. Just keep practicing, trying, but become an independent reader whenever you can. I loved reading comics. Some people may think that comics are, oh, that's not really a book. Oh, they are. They're wonderful. And picture books are also great because there are different ways of learning a story. Just
Mhm.
like in Something Beautiful, there are the words,
Yep.
and then there's the story and the picture, the illustration. The illustration is a whole nother way of telling the story. So picture books help us, I think, in learning how to read language. There are different ways of experiencing the world, and each of us has different kinds of gifts and strengths. So I encourage you to keep working at it, but try to find things to read that you really want to explore, that mean something to you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Barth, did I see your hand?
Barth. Oh.
Yeah, I did have a question. So, Miss Wyeth, did you have a favorite teacher and why? By the way, my favorite teacher is all of our garden teachers.
Uh,
Okay, Barth. Well, you're so lucky. You have a lot of great teachers. Yeah, you and I are alike in that way. I had a lot of fantastic teachers. I have stories about them all, and but one in particular, I'll tell you about one. Her name was Mrs. Jackson, and I was in the fifth grade. I'm not quite sure what grade you're in, but I was in the fifth grade, and I wrote a play, and it was again an independent project. It was something that I was interested in, and just like Senya's books, the characters go different places in the world and different states in the United States. Well, in my play, someone went to Africa, and they were in a contest, and it was a place in Western Africa. I didn't have the name of the country, but it was a different continent. So I wrote this play all by myself. I have no idea where I got the idea, just from my imagination. And I brought in my independent project to Mrs. Jackson, and she said, I love this. Our class is going to put this play on for the entire school. And that's what we
Wow.
did. It was very exciting. And it held up so well that I put it in sorry, I put it in one of my children's books. I actually did later on when I began writing my own books when I was a grown up. So you're lucky that you have so many good teachers. And yeah, I sure do have some favorites too.
Oh, that was great. Barth and Iris, they always have something good to say. Senya, how's our chat going?
We've got some traffic, Sarah, and I see one question in particular, and I think I'm just going to go for the gusto here. So, Sharon, would you care to speak about the canceling slash cancel culture of Dr. Seuss?
Oh.
I can't really give an intelligent response to that.
Mhm.
Uh, I can't give an intelligent response to it. I was I did not grow up reading Dr. Seuss, but I always admired the 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 fantasy and the extraordinary whimsy in the illustrations and the rhyming. But I'm not a I've never taught Dr. Seuss, and I don't, so I can't really comment on it. But I tell you what I will do. When the show is over, I will look it up and see if I can
Mhm.
get up to date on what the
Mhm.
controversy is. If there is, it sounds like there is one.
There
Sharon,
Yeah,
is.
that's totally fair. Go ahead, Sarah. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry.
I was gonna say I do use some Dr. Seuss texts in my classroom, so I am a little more up on it. And it is a very hot topic, Sharon, because there's kind of a bit of thought that he should be canceled and his books should be pulled from school because of his history. He had done some political cartoons before he became the Dr. Seuss
Oh,
writer. And then there's also five in particular books that people felt was more stereotypical illustrations that he did. And that's kind of the center of the controversy. And I want
oh,
to say, yeah, it's unfortunate for sure. And as I've thought about this and talked with other educators that have a wide range of view and other people that are just people that ask me, I kind of want to bring up this point about cancel culture. I want to I was on a podcast with Sigmund Cinema the other day, and he brought up a phrase that I wish we used more. Instead of cancel culture, maybe it should be accountability culture. And I know that the author, Theodore Geisel, he did apologize before he died for some of his past and also for some of his books that were, looked at for their caricature illustrations. And he did apologize, which is great, but then that accountability piece. So there is a foundation. How could that foundation now take a large chunk of money and support some more books that are like this? So instead of just canceling Dr. Seuss, because the benefit of Dr. Seuss books for people that don't know is that a lot of those books like Hop on Pop, um, Redfish, Bluefish, those are books that use sight words and very
yeah.
little harder words. And so those are very helpful for kids when they're learning to read. And so for me, I will continue to use the ones that are not the five that have stereotypical illustrations. But I think we could learn from this and say, hey, instead of just canceling something that has been positive, maybe we can hold that foundation accountable and put some funds and put some money behind other writers, minority writers especially, that have talent and maybe don't have the funds to get their work out there. Like, I don't know, maybe Senya Haynes, is she in the house? Yeah, she's a children's author too, that deserves some. Yeah, there she is, right there. People that want to do books that show kids that are mirrors for children. So that's
Yeah,
my
in other
two
words,
cents.
I see. In other words,
Yeah.
yeah, I think what you're saying, makes a lot of sense in general. Just
Hmm.
kind of moving on and developing and opening up our perspective as a society, so that we can see. Because I think that perhaps when he was creating those things, I remember I read one critical book about the Cat in the Hat, and now kind of I'm glimpsing what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, periods in society breed, create, develop, and support different kinds of art and literature, and it depends on who's controlling that, who's producing it, who's funding it, and and who the artists are and what their perspective is.
Mhm.
So I think that rather than thinking of it as a blanket cancellation,
Mhm.
just viewing it again as a process of opening up our society and our perspective all around, just kind of pulling the curtain back
Mhm.
and really
Mhm.
evaluating things in that way more. Maybe they're not as healthy or as useful. Just for example, I gave you the example of the Bobbsey twins. You know,
Yeah.
that was really quite very startling to me. And I never forgot the experience of just reading that character's voice. It was really upsetting. And what my mother said, and
Mhm.
of course, I had grandparents who lived in the country, so and in the South, so I knew that I had heard all kinds of dialects and accents and so on, but this was so hard in some way to even decipher as language. Uh, it wasn't like Paul Laurence Dunbar dialect there or something. This was really different. But you know that that book came out again because I looked for the edition that I'd read, and of course they had taken that out in later
Yeah.
editions, and then the book continued to be published, but it wasn't perpetrating that kind of caricature in terms
Mhm.
of the voice of the person who was working in the family. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, but I was thanks for bringing it up. Whoever did, I definitely will explore that.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. I think that was MJ. So I'll combine two questions here. So looks like first one is how many books have you written? And then can you segue into what your favorite book was as a child? I don't think I heard you answer that one.
Okay, I've written probably about you know, 50 or so
Wow.
books, picture books. Some of those were in a series of 20 book series. So it was a 20-book series, and then I wrote single books mainly. And historical fiction I love, and I've done that, and contemporary, and also some picture books, which are, very fond of too. As a child, it's hard for me to say like what my favorite books were. I read all the time, but I have to say I did like reading about animals. And I think it's because, in a way, there were a lot of the books that feature children. I enjoyed the story aspect of it. I was thinking about this actually in preparation for this event today. I enjoyed this following the story aspect, and I think that's why I became a writer, because I really had so much experience in reading stories, but I didn't have uh, an emotional identification with a lot of the characters or their settings or their locations. So the people were not. And primarily because there was really there were very few families. No families in the books were kind of like my family.
Yeah.
I mean, in any remote way, really. So I liked these books called Freddie the Pig, and
Yeah.
they were farm animals, and they could talk, and they went everywhere. Florida, Alaska, very, very interesting. His characters go places. Florida and the moon. I think he went to the moon. And just this intelligent pig. And I related to it because I was on a farm a lot of the time, and I loved pigs. So, and I also liked Charlotte's Web.
Mhm.
I thought that E.B. White had a very sensitive way of writing that book, and those characters did seem real to me. They didn't seem as the children, just seemed a little bit closer to something that I could relate to. But of course, the main character was, again, the spider and the pig. And they had such wonderful voices and there was such great storytelling. So those were my favorite books. I did run across a book when I was in sixth grade, again in the library, called Ramona. And, it was in the library, had been written years before I was born, but it was the first time that I encountered a character of color in a book. I mean, who was a protagonist, and it was about a young Mexican American uh, girl and a Native American, her her boyfriend, or it was a romance, and a lot of adults read it. I mean, and it was a political book written in the 1930s, and it really did um, changed a lot of people's minds in Congress. It was a breakthrough book by Helen Hunt Jackson. So that was very exciting to me. And at the time, I read about the background of the book, and I realized that people could write books and that could help change people's minds. So these discussions that we're having now about the impact of literature, older characterizations of groups and so on. They're very important discussions because it can, hey, let's keep going, let's keep developing, let's make things relevant for everyone. Let's open it up. It shouldn't be a closed society. The literary society should embrace us all. Shouldn't be,
Yeah.
the literary community should not be closed, just for one type of person who lives in one location. Yeah.
Shay, I wholeheartedly agree. So let me see. I have one that's not really a question, but it reminds me. I actually did an interview yesterday with a 13-year-old was my interviewer, and she asked a great question because she's a writer, and I see someone else is a writer in this chat. So can you give any advice for younger writers or aspiring writers on the best way to come up with a good method that works in being a great writer?
Yeah, well, I would say that the goal is not necessarily to be a great writer, but to write, to be a writer. And I think that writing about things that mean something to you, help motivate you, help stimulate your imagination, help encourage you to do research if you need to do research for the book. It's I also set aside time. I always have for my writing, and yeah, and I read other books. I read a lot of other books, and I always did because that helped me become a writer. The other thing for younger writers, I think, is to realize that there are opportunities right around the corner, and sometimes you can make your own opportunities. Like I wrote the play. I wrote the play. I went, brought it to my teacher. I didn't expect her to have, us put it on for the school, but something I felt like doing. If there's a newspaper in your school, then why not try out for the newspaper to write for the newspaper? There are opportunities around you. When you write, if you think it's good, show it to somebody, show it to a friend. The more you write, the more you do anything, the more practice you have, the more experienced you are, the easier it becomes in a way. And also, if you love it, then it means that you're really doing something that brings you joy and joy to other people when you share it with them. So that's what I would do. There are opportunities. I believe me, um, I wasn't in an environment when I was growing up where there were just tons of, I don't know, tutors or after school programs or none of that, you know? I had my opportunity was my library card,
Yeah.
and I went there, and then my opportunity was, well, the school needed a newspaper, and I said, "Sure, I can start the newspaper." And and I believe that, when we're younger, we have so much energy and motivation and optimism. And so don't be shy about it. Don't be afraid. And it doesn't have to be the greatest thing in the world. I mean, one day it might be, but mainly it's just you're just doing it because you want to do it, because you like doing it. Yeah. So that's my response.
Thank you, Sharon. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say you have poured into us so greatly today. Before we wrap up, though, Sarah, I have a question for you.
For me?
So, why is literacy so important in the At the Garden experience?
Yeah, I believe that it is a tool for kids to make their lives better, to find success in school and in their lives. And like Sharon said, it can also be a bit of an escape, which is often needed if you are in a chaotic or transitionary lifestyle and homes and stuff like that. But one thing that's always stuck with me is that people say that children should have read 1,000 books before they enter kindergarten. And whenever I hear that, I think, okay, that's great for kids that come from book rich environments or homes. But for our kids that don't, that is such a challenge and such a hurdle to jump by themselves, especially if their parents maybe didn't find success with reading. And I think that that's what is unique about this program is I really want to provide opportunities for kids to have access to literature that represents who they are, but also have it deep and have it important, like the story we heard today from Something Beautiful. I mean, that is a story that kids can learn from, and I think that our viewers could learn from too. Uh, so, just thinking about At the Garden, that promoting literacy, also the social emotional. I mean, social emotional learning is baked into Something Beautiful. It is there. And I think that that is so important to address, especially now more than ever, with so many kids either learning remote or hybrid and everything that's going on in our world. And sustainability. I mean, we need to talk more about the earth. So that's why I think and feel so strongly about promoting literacy, literature, and making it accessible for kids that maybe can't get to the library by themselves, but also unpacking the vocabulary and the learning they can get from hearing an adult actor from our show read a book, and offer that comprehension with it. So that to me is what's really important about our concept. And if I can, we are closing our GoFundMe campaign Sunday at midnight. So if you want to share and let people know about this campaign, we definitely appreciate it. We are going to shoot this, like I said, with all that we can. We're putting everything into it so we can possibly get the attention of somebody with more wealth than I have as an educator to make this show a reality, because we truly, everyone involved definitely believes it. And I also want to say real quick, subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're going to keep putting content up here. You can also find down below, it talks about our linked tree. So if you can follow Linktree ATG TV show, you can find articles about us, other opportunities about what we're doing. That's something that's always changing as we get more press or whatever. So definitely check that out if you want to learn more. And of course, with YouTube, subscribe, share what we did here today. I think we've started a very important conversation, Sharon, with you, and thank you. But we need to have more. Especially as an educator, we can take this time right now and look at traditional education and find what's wrong and maybe think about it a different way. If anything, I've learned from COVID, it's to hold those I love closer. But it's also that we have opportunities for innovative and creative thinking. And I think that not only ATG, but also education, we can really think, wow, remote is working for some kids. Why? What opportunities do we need to give kids to access literature that might be different from a traditional teacher reading a book? How can we do it better? So that's very important. And we want to do more events like this and keep the conversation going. So subscribe. And if you liked it, hey, put a comment down below so people can see what you think. And last thing, I promise, It has been my honor to be in this with you talented women. First, Senya, my friend, fellow actress. I've had the joy of directing her, writer, all of that. And Jayla's jaunts. She's not going to promote herself. She should, though, because Sharon did some of that for you. But it's a beautiful, she's written 3 books already, and they are wonderful and beautiful. So you need to put your information down below so people can check that out when they visit. And Sharon, you have inspired me. Believing in what we're doing early on is just, I'm a fan. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
I won't forget this. Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I'm really look forward to At the Garden and to seeing it develop. I'm sure it's going to be great.
It is good stuff coming on the horizon. So thank you again, ladies, and out there in viewer land, young folks and the adults they brought with them. Please don't forget that Something Beautiful is in its 23rd year and it's still out. So if you would like to purchase it, please go support your neighborhood bookstore. Or if push comes to shove, go to that big online vendor. But also you don't forget that the resources are there. And if you have a library card, please go to your library, check it out. Something Beautiful by Sharon Dennis Wyeth. And last thing is that we have 24 more hours for our fundraiser. So please, if you can donate to At the Garden, please do. Any amount is helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, write that. That's so lovely. They'll love that. And Bart, we're live. Oh, we're live. Oh, hi everyone. Hi. This was so fun.
Yeah, thank you all for coming, and thanks to Miss Sharon Dennis White for reading her book to us.
Oh, we learned so much. She's so smart and has so many big ideas.
Yeah. By the way, we were just writing a postcard, and we can send one to you too if you donated.
But how do we get their address? We don't know where everyone lives.
Oh, you just have to fill out the incentive form.
Inspection form?
No. The incentive form. That means that when you donate, you can get a postcard or attend our Zoom party or learn how to make a puppet.
Make a puppet? I want to learn how to make a puppet.
Oh, well then just look below.
Oh, well, thanks for coming, everybody. We can't wait to do this again, and we can't do this without you.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
tell her from the other side? What to tell her from the other side? What to tell her from the other side? To tell her from the other side? To tell her from the other Last night, behind the stage, I found myself right on the page. Read aloud, soft and slow.